This edition of our podcast is brought to you by 360 Health and Well Balanced Nutrition.
Welcome to the Health Geeks Book Club podcast. Listen in as Kristen Norton and Eleanor Russell review all those great health and wellness books you've been wanting to read or you have read and want to talk about. Here's Kristen and Eleanor.
Hey there, wellness friends. It's Kristen here with Eleanor.
Hello.
And we're excited to share a little update about our podcast. If you've been with us for a while, you know we love diving into books that spark curiosity and inspire better health. Well, we're making a small but meaningful shift in how we bring those books to life. Instead of squeezing a whole book into one episode or sometimes bouncing between ideas when we get excited, we're slowing down on purpose. So we'll be taking more time with each book so we can fully absorb all the wonderful information and share it with you and explore wellness beyond the pages. That means we'll talk about more real-life applications, stories from our life and work, practical coaching tips, and hopefully inspiration you can truly use. Each episode will focus on one key idea or takeaway from the book.
So we'll break it down, bring in personal and professional insights, and of course we're going to sprinkle in some science, and we'll always wrap it up with clear, doable way for you to apply the ideas into your own life. Whether you're a curious wellness enthusiast, a health professional, or just someone trying to take better care of yourself and your family, we're so glad you're here.
Yeah, and we believe small changes can add up, and this podcast is your space to learn, reflect, and grow right along with us. So get ready. We're starting with Forever Strong by Dr. Gabriel Lyon, and we cannot wait to dig in.
Hey, if you're as interested in prevention as I am, contact me, Eleanor Russell, at 360health4u.com. Whether you're interested in financial wellness or physical health products, 360 Health invites you to become part of our community.
Hey, make sure you're following the podcast and find us on Instagram and Facebook at Health Geeks Book Club so you never miss an episode or a tip.
That's a great tip, Tim.
Thank you. I've been practicing.
Yeah.
All right. So, Forever Strong by Dr. Gabriel Lyon. The long title is A New Science-Based Strategy for Aging Well, How to Reboot Your Body to Burn Fat, Fight Heart Disease, Reverse Diabetes, Stay Sharp, Build Muscle, and Boost Energy.
Wow, that
that's
is a
lot.
long title.
No, right?
I think all these books we read have long titles. You know, they've got a short title, it's real clear, and then
Yeah.
I like it.
I think a lot of the books that you do, it's like there are other books with the short title, but you have to,
explain what the short title means.
what the short title means with this long
Subtitle.
Yeah, an explanation of the book more than just a title.
Well, I will say, when you go out on the internet and you search for foreverstrong.com, you get a whole bunch of movie clips because there's a movie called Forever Strong.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't realize
Yeah,
that.
so she needed to clarify that, evidently.
Yeah, fair enough.
And, you know, I always, Kristen says you don't have to spend so much time on this, but I have to say, it's published by Atria Books, and that's a imprint of Simon & Schuster. So here we go, you know, another substantial publisher for this author.
So she's a board-certified family physician and completed a combined research and clinical fellowship in geriatrics and nutritional sciences at Washington University in St. Louis. She completed her undergrad training in nutritional sciences at the University of Illinois. She's a subject matter expert and educator in the practical application of protein for health, performance, aging, and disease prevention. She says later in the book that she's a geriatrician, although it's not listed here in this description. And then also important, she is in this kind of mentorship with Donald Lehman, who's a PhD, and has helped bring protein metabolism and nutrition from the bench to the bedside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting gal. I'm excited because one of the companies that I represent and recommend people use their products is having their global conference this summer, and she's the keynote speaker. So I'm going to get to actually see her in person, and maybe, hopefully, I'll get to talk with her Quite an interesting gal. She's got podcasts. She's got all sorts of resources on the internet for people. So let's dig into this and find out what she's got to say and whether we want to adopt some of her recommendations.
Sure. Well, let's do a really quick rundown of just what's inside the book and how it's organized.
And are we going to tell them about how we're doing well?
Yes, let's tell them about well. Audience, so you know that we're breaking down these topics and taking our time with each book. And so we'll spend several podcasts on one book, but just honing in on an idea or a takeaway from that. So well will stand for, what's the big idea? What's the wellness topic
we're going to talk about today?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then E is for education or explaining that in a little bit of depth.
Yeah. Let me have some science time, maybe.
We love the science time from Eleanor. And then L.
That could be the E.
Yeah. E for Eleanor.
Eleanor educates. I love it. And explains.
Yeah.
And then L is, taking it into real life application. And then the last L for well is let's try this at home. Something we can, break down into a small action item and
see what we think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe you could do the same.
We hope you do.
Yeah. Or get the book and see what you think about the book.
Yes.
And then come back for the rest of the episodes and talk with us. We were hoping that this change in format, is going to provoke a little more interaction with our audience. So we're going to try this out for a while and see if you all like this format.
Absolutely. And we still would love for you to read along with us. So check out our bookstore and pick up a copy of this. It does support our podcast when you purchase it through our bookstore. But this gives you more time to read along with us and digest the topics. Mm-hmm. So how it's broken down, we have 3 parts. Part 1 is the stakes, and she kind of goes into an explanation of muscle and strength and what's at stake if we don't have that. Part 2 is chart your roadmap to success, where she dives into more nutrition-related topics. And then part 3 is her action plan. And today, we're really going to start with the big idea that she suggests we need a paradigm shift from fat-focused to muscle-centric medicine.
Yeah, because we hear so much about you're too big, you need to be smaller. And she's saying there's more to this than that advice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The common mistake we make is, well, if I just lose weight, that'll be the answer to better health and even happiness. And the trouble is we feared fat so much and tied it to health problems that we've set up this unhelpful pattern of trying to get the fat off, whatever the cost. Mm-hmm. So we have this common weight loss cycle where you restrict calories and you lose weight, which people may or may not realize that weight loss is also, it's not just fat mass. It's fat-free mass, which includes muscle. And it could be up to 20% of what you lose. And then, so at a certain point, your body revolts against this restriction. Weight stalls, and then probably cravings get stronger, making it harder to keep going with the restriction. So then naturally weight starts to come back on, but now it's in the form of fat. So you've lost this muscle and you're not replacing. Of course, unless you're doing strength training and eating your protein, but that's not the common scenario. So then this loss of muscle and fat leads to things like impaired blood sugar control and inflammation, and then this sense of failure and gloom and doom. And then this yo-yo cycle keeps happening, but each time you do that, it whittles away at your precious muscle tissue that gets harder to gain back each time.
Yeah, and what she's saying is obesity probably isn't the problem. It's the result of not paying attention to your muscle health.
Exactly.
And that's why she's calling her model the muscle-centric model.
Exactly.
And she calls it medicine, muscle-centric medicine.
Yeah, and implies that this is so important that our doctors should be assessing our muscle mass and talking about this at our visits because it plays such a big role in metabolism. And as we'll talk about a little bit, even down to our mitochondria.
Yeah, one of the things she says about if you buy into her idea that paying attention to muscle is more important than paying attention to your fat body, you get some benefits. And the benefits of what she's calling muscle-centric lifestyle, which is something you can maintain and not yo-yo from. You know, these programs that people get on, they last 12 weeks, 6 months, whatever, and then they're over. And then you revert. And that's what you were talking about, what your body does then in response to that change.
Right. And because the programs are usually just about calorie restriction.
Yeah, but they're programs too. They have a beginning and an end.
Yeah.
A lifestyle doesn't. Your lifestyle is you're born, you die, and what you do in between that you can maintain. So anyway, if you get into this muscle-centric lifestyle, she says you're going to be able to balance your blood sugar. You'll have increased energy. Your mental clarity will come back. Decreased body fat, improved body composition, and reduced cravings. So those are just a few of the benefits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and she's setting us up to explain the negative impact of not having enough muscle and how we lose it
So
over time.
Let me diverge quickly to just one of the coolest insights I got in this book. And I went, oh my gosh, this woman nailed it here. I have taught anatomy it's not the only thing I've done in my lifetime, but I did a big chunk of time focusing on human anatomy, and we would do a systems approach where you teach students about, well, here's your skeletal system, here's your nervous system, here's your digestive system, blah, 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 blah. And then a little bit later when I was teaching medical students, we would talk about, well, in the region of the body, you got to look at all those systems together. Like in the neck, is there a cardiovascular component? Is there a muscle bone component? Is there nerve? Yeah, all that stuff lives in the same spot and talks to each other. And then you get into some other ways to look at anatomy. Well, this gal, says, well, you all that teach this system stuff, you get along and you say, well, there's the nervous system, and then there's the muscle system, and then there's the endocrine system. And Kirsten and I have talked a lot about the endocrine system and cortisol and dopamine and all these things that, hormones in menopause, when we did the menopause discussion, your sex hormones, those are carried in the bloodstream, and they come from one thing and they target something at a distance. Well, then the anatomy people said, well, there's really a neuroendocrine system. So they start putting these two systems together. And what this gal says is the muscle system is really an organ. It's an endocrine organ. And all of us who have ever exercised and feel good after exercise know that's true. Something comes out of your muscles and circulates in your body,
and you go, you feel good.
That feels good. And the feel-good chemicals are up in your brain.
Yeah.
So there's something out of the contraction of a muscle that signals your brain to secrete the dopamine. But maybe there's some other things coming out of your muscles that tell other things to do things. And that's what this gal's talking about. She says there are these elements called myokines. And I know that you all don't want to hear all about.
Oh, I do.
No, you don't.
Us.
You don't want to know all about them because we don't know all about myokines. It's sort of like a new field of research and study. But, there are some that we've heard of, like interleukin-6. A lot of people have heard of IL-6. That's a myokine, and it plays a role in inflammation, metabolism, and bone formation. And then there's one called irisin that is promoting your mental clarity. It's neuroprotective. Then there is myostatin, which inhibits muscle growth, which that doesn't sound reasonable. But you know what? If your muscles get too bulky, they don't function properly, and they can affect the way you move.
Oh, so it's kind of a homeostasis.
It's a protective. It don't get too big too fast or out of whack with the other ones.
Yeah.
Because if your biceps gets too big and your triceps aren't matching it, you end up with a contracted arm, basically. So, hey, that's kind of cool. And then there's this other one that I was really thinking is going to tie into our discussion called endocrine. And it is a myokine that antagonizes the myostatin. So there's your homeostasis. There's one that balances. They work against each other. And it promotes muscle growth. So you've got one that decreases muscle growth and one that promotes it. But this endocrine also organizes collagen. And what is the story? Everybody's buzzing about collagen right now, right?
Oh, it's hot.
Oh, it is a hot topic. So, here's something coming out of your muscles that's affecting the way the collagen is organized wherever it is in your body, and it's in lots of places besides your tendons and your joints. It holds your skin to the.
I was going to say your skin.
Yeah.
People take it for skin health.
Yeah. Well, anyway, and then in all of that, Decarin is a leucine-rich proteoglycan. And we're going to be talking about leucine because that is something that she brings up in this book. And we'll get to it later. But I'm just laying the groundwork that that amino acid called leucine has a role in this myokine that has a role, so we're very complex organisms, and I'm going to stop this right now because I think that just says the muscle is an endocrine organ. It secretes these chemicals that are signaling molecules that travel through our body and have effect in many different places, and we should protect our muscles and build them and use them for our good health.
I love it. And it's not just those feel-good hormones.
No.
Or
the endorphins.
Endorphins, right, that we experience. There's so much more going on at a deeper level. That's neat.
I want to say one other thing, though, that I tripped into here, which she does not talk about, which is whole body vibration. I saw someone through my social feed the other day about this girl who couldn't really work out. So she was getting these mats put on her legs, and they were going to vibrate her.
Yeah.
Well, evidently, that can cause this myokine secretion too. So it doesn't have to be intentional muscle contraction because voluntary.
I've seen a lot of reviews and such on the Vibra pad things that they stand on, and what it does is it forces your muscles to straighten themselves out.
So we at some point we may look into that because that was a little thing that she does not address in our conversation. But I went, ooh, sidebar.
Yeah,
another book we might go be looking for.
Okay,
because we talked about sound and we've talked about flavor and all these other things. Maybe vibration is something we can look into.
Are you ready to take control of your health and wellness journey, but don't want to do it alone? Look no further than Well Balanced Nutrition. We offer personalized nutrition and wellness coaching tailored to your unique needs. Our integrative, whole person approach combines the latest evidence-based practices with compassionate guidance. Whether you're managing health concerns or seeking to optimize your well-being, take the first step towards a healthier, happier you by booking a free 15-minute consult with one of our registered dietitians at wellbalancednutrition.com. So the other thing that is important about muscle is its role in metabolism. I'm just going to read on page 22 because I think this is a good setup to understand how muscle helps drive metabolism and why its effect is so important. It helps to grasp these three core concepts. So glucose, which is sugar in our blood, becomes toxic to the body when too much remains in the bloodstream for too long. That is more than 2 hours, and we call this disease state diabetes. So insulin is the body's main mechanism for removing glucose from the bloodstream and getting it into our cells. And 3, a root cause of obesity and related diseases, including type 2 diabetes, hypertension, cardiovascular disease, etc., is decreased insulin sensitivity, also called insulin resistance.
Yeah, and part of that story comes back to my favorite topic of myokines.
Yes.
Because myokines do affect metabolic health, and the conversation so much is centered around insulin. But what she's suggesting is we need to maybe focus back on these myokines because they are involved in the regulation of glucose and lipid metabolism, and they can contribute to the prevention and treatment of these diseases like diabetes and obesity. So as we learn more about the myokines, there may be another intervention besides insulin. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. And insulin and the form of that injected, or we also talk about diet and restriction, cutting back on carbs, but it's rarely you rarely hear a doctor say, well, you need to go strength train because of these benefits.
Yeah, and when I was trying to help people learn about exercise prescriptions, there was resistance. Now, some people now may be embracing that, but that's what this author is talking about too. She says moving is a therapy, and it can be prescribed to people who are not moving.
And I think that's the whole thing she is really trying to get across. Yeah.
Prevention.
Well,
and using your body as a healing instrument.
Okay, so 4 things about muscle and metabolism I want you guys to know. The first is muscle can store glucose. And then when we contract our muscles, it uses that glucose for energy.
Yeah, and do they store it as glycogen?
Yes.
Okay.
And then second, muscle can use that glucose in your bloodstream without needing insulin during physical activity. This is the coolest thing I like to tell my clients, right? If you have any kind of insulin sensitivity or insulin resistance, after you have a meal, go move your body because you're kind of passing that. You don't need insulin, right? Your muscles are helping get that blood sugar into the cells to be used up so it's not sitting there in the bloodstream and getting toxic. So muscles can bypass that whole need for insulin when you're using them. Coolest thing.
The glucose goddess that we read, the Glucose Revolution.
She shared
That was
in her
one
book
of
too.
yeah, that was one of her. So here we have 2 authors saying after you eat, within 10 minutes, get up and take a walk. Right?
Yeah.
Good advice.
That's right. I forgot that was in there too. Number 3, resistance training can improve your cell's ability to use glucose for days after your workout.
I love that one.
So not only can we bypass it while we're contracting these, but then it's going to help your body, help insulin do its job better days after your workout. And then 4, muscle tissue can also use fatty acids for energy, and it does so even at rest. I don't know about you, but those are 4 amazing things about muscle that I don't think people realize.
No, and we just bypass it. And you maybe don't even need to know this stuff. Just move your muscles. It's a good idea.
I think
if you
there's
need
a
to
lot
know,
of people that like to know why it's important. Or,
I'm one.
So many, for so long, exercise has been about weight loss. And I think we've talked about exercise so many times on this podcast as more than that. But I still see and encounter people that are putting that together like, oh, well, I'm only going to go to the gym if I need to lose weight.
And guess what, folks? You may go to the gym and gain weight, and I know somebody that has done that. I won't call her name out.
It's me.
And when I've worked with people that are trying to adopt new lifestyle, that idea of you may get heavier comes up, and it's like, but your inches or your shape or your body composition is going to be changing. So even though your weight goes up, this may not be a bad thing for you.
Yeah.
And according to this author, more muscle, more better.
Exactly. And we shouldn't be afraid of that number on the scale going up. It's more about
exactly
what's happening inside.
But we don't want to get into body composition measurement, but she did. She gives you ideas about how to explore that. It's not an easy task right now.
Well, you know what a real life application of this or like example that people might be experiencing right now?
What?
When, many people are using a GLP-1 medication, and that leads to rapid weight loss.
Oh, yes, it does.
And, in my example earlier, that common weight loss cycle, you actually, because you're losing more rapidly, you tend to lose more muscle than a standard calorie restriction.
Yeah. There's other
That's
things.
not good based on what we're reading from this author, right?
Right. And just to clarify what GLPs are.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. GLP-1s.
Glucagon-like peptide. And they can be under certain trade names.
Like Wegovy, Zepbound.
Ozempic is a one.
Ozempic.
Yeah. And they're very effective. And maybe there is a place for them. But being informed about what you're doing and the long-term ramifications might be a good idea.
So
in my opinion.
Exactly.
In my opinion.
And my concern as a dietitian is, a dietitian has a huge role in helping people figure out, the weight's going to come off, but how do we build a lifestyle now as this comes off? And part of that is thinking about protein and muscle mass and preserving that instead of letting it all go. So.
Yeah, because once you lose muscle mass, it's difficult to recover it. And you may correct me on this, sarcopenia is a condition of losing muscle mass.
Exactly.
Yes.
This is a sidebar.
Okay. From the audience.
Yeah, it's from the peanut gallery. I did Ozempic for like 3 months and didn't lose a bit of weight, but it made me cranky and my attitude was not great. So sometimes they don't work. And if they do anything, it's not good. I'm not saying I am against them or anything like that. I have no say in it. But yeah, that was just I took one and it did not do me good. It actually did me, I won't say bad, but
It cost you money.
Well, no, it did not.
Oh, it
actually.
didn't? Okay,
no.
all right.
But that's the different story. But it did not work for me. So it doesn't work for everybody. And it's not the right answer. If you can do it naturally, do it naturally.
Well, and I agree. I think it's good for some and not great for others. And that's a discussion to have with your doctor.
Yes, and now there's my next point. I have begun to hear of people getting these compounds from chemists who have boutiques, health and wellness boutiques. And, we read The Gospel of Wellness.
Yes.
What was the author's name? Anyway, Tim's going to look that up for us. And she was talking about this explosion of people getting in the game of wellness and how you do need to evaluate from whom you're getting your information. And that's kind of why Kristen and I decided to read these books and say, these authors sound substantial, and these maybe, not.
Right.
Or some of their ideas are controversial and nobody knows yet.
Rena Raphael.
Yes, Rena Raphael. Interesting book. But this idea of going to a chemist to get it concerns me, because someone who needs to change their body, I guess, is that what we're talking about when people want to lose weight? Or they're confronted with, I've been told I have obesity and I have to lose weight because I don't want to have diabetes. And if I lose weight, I'll not have diabetes. Well, it depends on which weight you lose, right? If you lose your muscle mass, you may still have diabetes.
Exactly. To the point of this conversation, that's only part of what you need to do.
Right.
But the major part is to protect or build more muscle.
Yeah. And since we're in the section of our wellness discussion of life, relating it to real life, this is why I'm going down this road. So not only are you losing muscle mass and fat mass, because the glucagon is a hormone that your stomach secretes when it's full and says to your brain, you're full, don't eat anymore. You're satiated. Well, so you put this thing in there and your brain says, okay, don't eat. And then you don't eat. Well, what's happening to all those micronutrients and things that you need for other things because you're not putting it in the mouth? You're changing what your cells are receiving to do their work. Not only that, you're changing the microbiome in your gut, because they're affected by this drug as well, and because food's not coming through, and it's slowing the motility of your gut, so things are staying in there longer. I mean, there's a whole lot that goes on when you submit to this GLP thing that I think if you are going to do it, you need an advocate with you that is a professional and has been well educated and maybe has some experience in guiding people in the use of this thing. So that's my caution to anybody out there that is going to choose to do this. Make sure you get good counsel and
get a
stick with them.
physician that will work with you, or shameless plug, a dietitian.
Yes. No, I think dietitians have the ability to do this too, but I'm not sure
down.
Just somebody that's schooled in biochemistry does. Because the people skills have to be there.
Yeah.
Yeah. The counseling skills.
Yeah.
All right. That's my little relation to real life and GLP-1 weight loss. But it sort of relates to why are we doing this anyway? And her paradigm shift, Gabrielle Lyon is talking about, who do you want to be? Who do you want to become? And that's a philosophical question for all of us as we journey through life, is to have that vision of who we're trying to be so that we can construct our life to deliver that outcome, maybe? Is that kind of what you thought when you were hearing this? And so she talks about goal setting, and we hear a lot about goal setting. And she says, I'm not sure that's the best way to approach who do you want to become and the vision, because she says you need to dream big. become the best you can be, and then develop a plan that's going to get you there, and then know that you're going to fail along the way, and have a plan for when I fail, what am I going to do? I like that advice, but she says, set a standard. I am living this standard. And that's a different mental paradigm thing than I met my goal. It's, I'm reaching a standard and I'm not letting myself below that standard. Mm-hmm. So that was one of the real life at the
application
overview of this book that I wanted to share.
Well, and with that note, I think something to leave you guys with, or let's try it out, is just focus on what you have to gain rather than what you need to lose, right? Muscle, as we've talked about, is so important for multiple reasons. It's a major key to longevity, good metabolic health, and think about those things that you can gain. You can prevent or help correct high blood sugar and high cholesterol, maintain the activities of a fulfilling life, right? Mm-hmm. Who you want to become maybe is somebody who lives life to the fullest. And you can do that with that strong, healthy base. And then, of course, with these myokines, you could decrease age-related cognitive decline. So what do you have to gain? And, what do you think about that mindset shift?
I'm in.
Yeah. Well, want to dive deeper? We barely scratched the surface, and we're going to go over some other topics in this book, but we invite you to check out the podcast bookstore and buy Forever Strong. It helps us support the show.
And I'm Eleanor Russell at 360health, 4u.com. I like to help people assess where they are and then use products that will support that journey they're on, called Prevention of Disease and Promotion of Health.
And I'm Kristen Norton. I'm one of the registered dietitians at Well Balanced Nutrition, and we would love to help you on your journey, set a vision, and create a plan and work together. Visit us at wellbalancednutrition.com if you're curious about working with one of us.
And in the meantime, I'm going to be eating one of my protein bars and getting 18 grams of protein because I'm trying to eat protein.
Heck yeah. Until next time.
Views and opinions stated in this podcast are solely those of the contributors and are not necessarily those of our distributors or hosting company. This podcast is copyrighted, and no part can be reproduced without the expressed written consent of Kristen and Eleanor.